You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.
You know, as usual, there's so many things to talk about. We have our transmissions this week. We have interesting weather outside. And we have some guests later on today. And we're going to talk a little bit. I got an interesting message from Andrew this week. And this just as usual. Lots and lots of things happening. Lots of discussions. And here we are again today. Hello, JP. How are you?
Hey, Jessica. How are you?
Doing pretty well. And, you know, kind of, it's one of those days where, you know, I started doing the transmissions and then I kind of got distracted and then I came back to them and, I wasn't expecting some of the information to come through. I never am, you know, but it was definitely, some of it was a little intense. We had a visit from Andrew. Do you remember Andrew?
Andrew as in, hang on, Andrew was before Andronicus, yes?
Yeah.
He's the
yeah,
sort of
he's...
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and, yeah, I really liked what he had to say. And I think that he's sort of kind of in the background and he, for me, this is a type of disclosure that I look for. It's not the typical military disclosure that people talk about, but he kind of explained to me some of the inner workings of what's going on and how things happen from a greater perspective as a being who's outside of our timeline.
What Andrew would call unentangled.
Yeah. Yep. So it was quite an interesting conversation. I really want you to take note of some of the things that he said. And he has a different way of looking at things than Andronicus does, or Andronicus is quite different later on. But, you know, it's some way, I don't know how they do it, if they're multi-locating or, just all in the same spot, but able to do multitasks. I don't know, but it's really, really, very, very interesting to me how this all works out and, you know, plays into our reality. And also it brings you back into a perspective of how, you know, who we are, you know, in light of, you know, the expansiveness of our universe, the expansiveness of our dimensions, our parallels, and all these other things. And in a little bit of the interplay of it. Also, we have a message from Gary, which is fun as usual. And Meetis is still with Baylord.
All right. So that gives me a one. Just because it's robe week, I bought a new bathrobe or a new robe anyway, and it's I'm not quite sure about it yet because it's got certain things, but it's called a Sith Lord robe.
Oh,
which
wow.
is probably why it's got some you know, negative qualities. But it's like we're walking around, and every time I touch something, I'm getting a shorting, and it's like it's really staticky, right? It's like get loads of static. So I think, you know, I'm a bit nervous because, you know, these things can destroy electronic components, but it's long and black and plush with a hood. So. But yeah, I mean, the sparks come out the end of my fingers just like the Sith Lord. But I mean, obviously not as not like the kind of Tesla coil version that you see on Star Wars, but a little spark comes out the end, for sure.
So just by buying this robe, it brought in the static came along with it?
Yeah, because it's made of an artificial material that has been, it's like it generates static. If you got rubber soled shoes and you just rub one sleeve against the other, it'll generate this enormous. You're talking a couple of thousand volts, only tiny current, but lots of volts. And so you walk past the radiator or something grounded or some other person, and you get a spark will jump between you. Teeny tiny, but still pretty Sithy, really.
Yeah,
to be honest,
that sounds cool.
When you think about it. Wow. Anyway,
it's like we need to get you one of those lightsabers or something too. Then.
Well, I sometimes feel like going zoom, 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 after dinner. But anyway.
I'm surprised you don't have that as a sound effect. It seems like it should be part of your toolbox of sounds.
Yeah, that's a good one. It won't be long. Somebody will send me one.
I know.
I'm sure.
Now that we suggested it.
Yeah, that's right. It's coming. It's coming already. I've already got it. There we go. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Who needs a synthesis? Who needs sound effects when you got a mouth? Anyway, should we do some of these things? Do we have guests later?
We do. We're going to be joined by. Hold on. We have. Christina will be joining us. Ray. Mm-hmm. And Rolf will be joining us.
Right. Great. So, shall we get on with our transmission? As it were.
Yes. And let's see. Well, I think we should start with Rhodan.
Quiet sands. This is what I'm in search of. The sands on your planet have been made a transducer for AI. When we test to find out if we have been successful in the removal of AI, we will know it by measuring your sands. Morbius showed up and requested a visit with me. His species are strong and unbending, though they have not thrived well on your planet. I won't disregard what they have to say, since many would be affected by them. On your planet, they're not a military power, but rather an energetic power. This is the nation called Moldova. They secretly rest behind towering nations, but few know that their power is the building blocks of those nations. Morbius came to your world thousands of years ago and laid claim upon that region without permission. When we discovered that they were not harming anybody and prevented war there in the region, we allowed them to remain. However, within their solidarity and place of peace, they have not found comfort or increase of power on the earth, because they are still in the status of a visitor. This can change upon deeper discussions and communication regarding their future intent and contribution to humanity.
Rhodan, can you tell me the name of Morbius' species?
They are the ones we refer to as the Borgen, or the Borg. They have a hive mind but are not AI. They were created during the rebellion of the ancient builders and do have sentient attributes. They have merged with humanity in a way that is seamless and non-apparent. At this present date, we have no contention with them and would like it to remain that way. We've come to a peak of critical time right now. As time evolves, an earthly shift occurs and new things are revealed. Oftentimes, problems arise that require immediate attention. We're observing the Earth very closely at this time and have been able to divert many serious events from happening. I will begin my discussions with Morbius soon and will keep you informed regarding the status of its outcome. You have completed your task now. We held you on watch to observe the planet with great intensity through your eyes and ears. This was requested of you because we have many planetary systems to observe, and it was most convenient for your incarnation to be present during the peak of the restructuring of the galactic center. I understand that we had not discussed this, but you provided little resistance regarding the tasks that were requested of you. To our surprise, many of the galactic problems were rooted from Earth, and this put you in some very challenging and compromising situations. For this reason, I regret that I had laid this burden upon you, but you did surprisingly well, considering the circumstances. To our surprise, many had recognized who you were and the origin of your existence. I only wish we had been better prepared and lightened the load of your responsibilities. Because of your involvement in this work, we have decided to bring you to a new status where others had failed.
Thank you, Rhodan. I could feel the importance of what you were asking me to do, but it seemed to never end, day and night. It will be wonderful to have a break and to be able to sustain myself a lot easier moving forward. I'm sure you understand what I mean, but I am still available, as you know, moving forward.
We still have much to do moving forward, and if you are willing to assist, it would be very much appreciated. We have adapted to the process of data and history retrieval. This process seems to simplify and rapidly target information required when needed. Your ability is as ancient as your soul, and we have yet to find a system that matches it. Try not to be frustrated. Much has been gained by your work, although you might not see the outcome or status. I would like to also state that I am pleased with the Earth Council and have some work ahead for them as well, if any chooses to engage. Keep strong, live harmonious, and thrive. We have yet to find a system that matches you.
Yeah.
Not bad.
I wish they would have told me sooner, but I think it's just my memory recall or whatever that they have access to, and almost like a radar system or something that I'm able to find things. So, but I think it was common for those ancients to do that, you know, but I don't know where the others are. I always felt like there were others, and where are they?
Yeah.
Maybe they're doing some other things elsewhere, I'm sure.
Well, maybe one or two of them are sort of just kicking back and
asleep, maybe too.
Yeah.
They could be asleep.
Oh, you mean like literally in like hypersleep thing?
Yeah, or just like, you know, incarnated and not quite awakened yet. I'm expecting that others are going to wake up and they're going to step in and do some really amazing things going forward. So, you know, everyone has their own task to fulfill, and people, you know, many of those that are listening probably think, well, you know, I'm just here as a spectator, and you're really not. Every single individual is a participant, and if you choose not to be a participant, you are, even when you're choosing not to, sometimes just by observing. But I think then that it goes to another level where you might not consider what you're doing is actually impactful, but it is. So,
many people do not realize the ripples that they send out.
No, they don't. I mean, it's something that you sort of learn later, where you step back and observe your life, and if your guides are kind enough to really open your eyes, you can actually see the effects of some of the things that you created in your own life and in those things around you. So, you know, think about it and maybe ask or request to have that insight. I think it's something that everyone can access if they wanted. It's something to think about.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just getting the next track to download. Anyway.
Doing the music track.
Yes. So, where should we go next? I seem to have got a German accent here. I don't know why.
Yeah, what's going on?
It just came. I don't know where it came from.
Okay. And you never know what those Nazis around right now. What's going on?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Baylor's, since you're in a mode of something, let's see if Baylor's around.
So, onto the Meetis.
Well,
Have you got
yeah,
a separate?
what do you Meetis? Yeah. Let me see. Maybe, no, I take that back. Let's go to Andrew next.
Yeah. There we go.
This is Andronicus, from the past.
So, do you think, is this like Andronicus when the Andromedans were a 3D race or something?
I think this might even be before the Andromedans. That's how far back I think it is. I think this is when he was kind of managing timelines, and then I think he chose to forget who he was and experience a galactic civilization. Yeah, and actually be sort of like the journeyman, kind of one who explores and yeah, he's a highly complex being and gets bored exceptionally, very, very quickly. And so when he does something, there has to be all these layers to it,
Keeps him.
So
you have to keep him interested, keep him slightly distracted.
Yeah.
That's what Rhodan has always said about him, isn't it? So he's too easily distracted to go up and investigate things. Yeah. Oh well, just one more YouTube.
Yeah. So here is Andrew.
I think I have something that you've been waiting for. Once again, I know you're surprised to hear from me. I just can't resist myself from popping through your reality in a whim. I should inform you that there are a lot of new information there. That there is a lot of new information that is up ahead since one of the timelines had collapsed. We made the decision from your past. It just didn't seem to work out. The timeline, the structure, the humans involved. By the way, were you aware that we give different humans opportunity to implement their ideas and persuasions? Those that are in power in your reality today in your present timeline were very likely oppressed by you and had a similar dislike or sentiment towards you as you have for them presently. You may refer to this as the upside-down world. Because you hold a memory of things differently, it is very likely at a time when your soul group was in charge. The irony of it all. This is the reason why beings like Rhodan appeared. They hold your attention, they make you think and wonder, they provoke your subconscious and stir up memories of previous issues not yet resolved. In your present timeline, the Select Group requested the Rigel to assist in formulating control groups, whereby they can be further liberated to rule with very little opposition. I had suggested that they would deeply regret the concept of controlling others who could ultimately present them to a higher dimension of assessment, and it would be you as a witness against them. Needless to say, they carried on in their own folly and engaged in their further conquest of indulgences similar to other timelines and rulerships that lived in excess while the masses suffered. I warn them. Oppression brings discontent, sorrow brings upheaval, and the option of mass destruction would not run favorable with their galactic community observing their every action. They can never say, I didn't warn them. After many discourses of communication, they began to hide behind the veils. They began to mask themselves behind the brutish species such as the reptilians, draconians, raptors, nagas, and aligned with the alternate grey species, gorgons, dark elementals, and so on. In this attempt to hide while causing great deception, all of their actions became transparent to us. One by one, they are being removed from the very timeline they were allocated long ago. We stripped them from their power to rule because they thought they could deceive the givers of life. Our efforts will become more obvious, and when we complete the task of revealing the contingency of deception, then we will begin to dismantle the operational systems that have been used to oppress the masses. It is important for you to note that we do not consent to this timeline's abuses, but rather would differ upon observing. It is important for you to note that we did not consent to this timeline's abuses, but rather would differ upon observing multiple timelines where anomalies, intersections, and flux required more stringent observation. I would like to speak to you about the Rigel group. They are an archaic rogue element. You have incorporated their systems into various civilizations on and off your world. You find them to be contentious and in dire need to control others, incapable of being independent, disharmonious, and beyond purposeless. We have found their systems and programs attached to 83 stargates and 44 civilizations. What they don't realize is that with one wave of a hand, all of their programs cease to exist. Here are some of the programs that we discussed earlier. They have placed a generational stronghold on your society, segmenting 10 years where it creates a generational gap and blocks off and disrupts open communication between these generations, whereby it fragments the population and disallows a universal voice. Very soon, that system will be broken. These are some of the disruptive and restrictive programs that disallow ascension. I've grown quite fond of humanity in this timeline and would like to see that it thrives beyond measure. Because of this, I've chosen to step in and prevent some highly volatile incidences to occur on your planet at this time. These occurrences were predicted, expected, and accepted by humanity. Today, I'm releasing you from this burden. Of course, I'm not eliminating all challenges because much of the change you want needs to be of your own initiative. I'm only stepping in to remove strongholds that are above and beyond the ability of humanity. Carry on. Carry on, number one. So, yes.
Those pesky Rigel.
Rigels, yes.
Mm-hmm.
What do they look like? Any idea? Do you get videos of them?
No, I have pictures of them somewhere. They're ETs. They look like grays. They have a strange. Let's see if I can find a picture of one and share in the chat room. Well, anyhow, I'll look through, but the Rigel are. Maybe I can look online and get an image that way. It's one of the gray species. I think they look a little bit brownish in their appearance. Let's see if I can find. I see that they show the planet, but I had a picture of one somewhere that I shared. Maybe on my phone. But I think the point is that they're, have been, imposing, they have been working with this group, I'll call them overlords, those that have asserted themselves in a way to, be the control system of the way the planet is and with a lack of, other, definition, you could easily call them the cabal. And
so they, you described them as AI as well. Are they hive-mindy? It's like the Borg as well. I mean, we're getting all the dark side over today.
Yeah. I have a picture of them. Let's see. I'm going to send that over to you. Maybe you can put it in the chat. This is an image of the ones they call the Rigel. I think what they do is it's a form of mind control, and their purpose is to create segment and separation. So, what's the first thing you hear about? Like, for example, I'll use a cult as an example. And the first thing they do is if a family comes into the cult, they start creating separations. Separating the children from the parents, separating the husbands from the wives. I can bring in Scientology as an example. I spoke to someone who was invited to be a part of the org, and they would he, went in there, and they actually have like this little internal place where everyone like has their own apartment or like their own room, and so the husband and wives are often separated, and so they're separated from the family, and that's how they sort of break down the system. They have core groups of people, and they see that there was another group of people that these two sisters that I know, the first thing that they did was separate them, put them in different rooms, penalize them for communicating privately. And so it's like a divide and conquer concept. And so on a greater scale, the Rigel, amongst many other things, I imagine some other programs that they've done, the one that keeps coming up is this generational gap one that comes up, where, humans are humans. And I recognize soul groups, but this is a natural overlay where you have a group of people from the 1950s completely incapable of communicating with the people from the 1960s. And then the 1960s losing communication with the people from the 1970s. And it just keeps on going from there, And, like when they had Generation X, they're like, well, they don't believe in anything that, it's almost like, yes, that was the depreciation of the existence of humanity through programming. So little by little, there was this stripping away. I mean, it sounds maybe to some as if it's I'm reading into it. It could be, maybe some people think it's contrived or it's exaggerated or whatever. But from my perspective, those parameters were not supposed to be there. I mean, if you break down those systems and you kind of get into a place where people are really relaxed and being who they are, you won't notice the difference between the generation gaps. It seems to eclipse all of it. It goes right past it. So that to me tells me that never should have existed in the first place. The lack of communication, the disrespect or whatever, and so the intention is even for the younger generation to not want to care for their elders, which is an intrinsic part of the tribal existence that we kind of came into this planet with. And instead they've institutionalized everything where the elders are then taken and thrown into, some assisted living and cared for by people that really don't care about them or like them. And maybe you hope that they have compassion and kindness. And some people do. Some people are very kind, even kinder than relatives at times, but I don't know what the amount are in that situation. So, we can talk about all of the spiritual stuff all day long, but when it comes down to the brass tacks of it all, we need to really consider, really be able to talk and discuss what's going on with humanity right now. And I am telling you, and I'm feeling 100% confident that these are programs that were set in place to further create separation and discord, to cause a disruption of the core of a family and loved ones. I don't think all the divorces were necessary. I think that was also a divide and conquer effort and just a breaking down of society so that we have really nothing to hold on to. And people become isolated, more isolated, less trusting of others, more in the shadows, not open-hearted anymore, feeling like they have to be corrupt or lie to survive. All of these things are part of the program of separation. And I don't have any other word to say it other than maybe it's the program created by the Rigel to enable this elite group to be able to go out and have fun, on the consequences and the sorrows of others through their attempts to control us. keep us in our little box, a segmented space, and that they can further on, do whatever they're doing. Now, the humans that are inadvertently doing this are not fully aware of the spectrum of strongholds and the control systems that exist, because this is extraterrestrial intrusions. They're not just caused, it's not like they sat around and they planned this whole thing. They had assistance, and don't fully, if you sat them down, they wouldn't fully be aware of it. They wouldn't even know that these ETs have gone along with it, but on a subconscious level, somehow this whole thing came together. And Andrew, who's managing multiple timelines, said this can't exist anymore.
So where did it all start? Because he said there was one that they're dismantling. Is that the one? Is that what has become the Nazi timeline? Do you know any details on that?
The Nazi timeline is an alternate timeline, and any time that there is the timeline is failing or there's some major problems, I think it opens up to an alternate. So had we been more in tune with, maybe had worked more in this timeline, some of that wouldn't have opened. But I will say that Andrew stepping up and saying, hey, I like this timeline. I think it's salvageable. I think, because I've heard of other timelines falling off or coming to an end. You hear of time travelers going into timelines where they travel and they get to a point and they're like, oh, it's the end of the world. Well, which timeline are you looking at? Is that our timeline or another? Because how can all of these different outcomes be? And I don't distrust what they're saying. When you can feel the authenticity of their sorrow and expression. It's kind of like the John Titor discussion about this nuclear event, and you hear about there's other time travelers that talk about how civilization ceases to exist later on, and my opinion is that some of these timelines are playing themselves out, and if a higher dimensional being was here that was supporting the timeline and they step out, sometimes that pulls the energy from that timeline. And in order for them to engage and then step out, there must have been something dramatic that happened for this to occur. So I was looking at this one time travel event that happened. I think it was let's see if I can get it. Hold on a second. All right, so there was a time traveler from 4,932, and I think he called himself Janu, or something like that, or it was talking about Janu, and he talks about how the timeline drops off. Now, it's because a president gets killed. And I believe that's because the president is an incarnate of the higher dimensional being, and that humanity in that timeline rejects that being. The being talks about the existence of God, and it's rejected. And let's see if I can find I can share that with people. I mean, this is completely my theory. I have no proof to back it, but if I talk to these beings that I talk to, I believe that they give me great insight into something that I don't know for sure. But I will tell you that, like, some of the stuff of Al Bielek. And this is from Apex TV, by the way, for those who are curious. Someone like Al Bielek, who had an experience, and I believe his experience was very authentic, because I actually have a memory of some of that through regressions that I did, or progressions as they call it. And so I didn't know that he was talking about these things. And I remember listening and saying, oh, I know exactly what he's talking about. I mean, it completely rang true to me. So I'm going to post this as well. And this is from Apex TV, called The Time Traveler from 4932. And there'll probably be more discussions on this. I may discuss it further in some other shows elsewhere, but I just shared that with you, JP, if you want to put that into the chat room.
Yeah, it's on its way though. So, where next?
Okay. Let's see. Well, let's do Meetis. And as he talks to Baylord.
Hello, my love. I'm standing under a rather large tree right now, having a bite to eat.
And I saw Meetis with a piece of bread and a small knife and a piece of cheese.
I'm growing quite fond of Baylord. Many of the villagers have grown fond of him as well. I know I have my challenges and don't always get along perfectly with my peers, but he has brought much levity to my life. He puts a little fire in my step. I feel stronger and less weary from the battle. I do have to admit, he can't carry the hard spirits very well, but he's a good bloke nevertheless. Oh, here he comes.
Baylord came back with a very large bundle of sticks on his back for the fireplace.
Hey, you've got a mountain of stick upon your back. Aye, and a remedy for your ailing throat.
And then he pulled out of his bag some herbs.
You're beginning to sound like a toad. I don't believe I'm sick. Just weary. Maybe a little too much ale at night. I'm sure I'll be okay. You know how we are. We come from a rugged stock. We lack timber with new growth and a river that's always fed by the ocean. Aye, but you do look a little pale from the lack of sun. A teeny bit scurvy, maybe. Me? Scurvy? Never. I take very good care of myself. I still have my boyish figure and angelic face. Aye, that's true. You appear as a lad, undoubtedly to some. But you should look more like a rugged elder by now. Why do you prevent your age from showing? I don't want to grow old. I know it has many benefits. Many more would listen to me. But this is how I prefer to be, as it allows me the freedom to play, to sing and dance and to perform every night and every day. You know, I must be leaving soon. The winter winds are coming and my portals into the parallels are requesting my presence. I'm glad I came here. There's been so much that your folly has given me. I believe I have lifted many heavy burdens off my back, whereby these sticks were no burden at all to carry. They should last you throughout the winter. Go on, have your fun, lad. I must return back to the parallels and attend to my people, but I will have your songs ringing in my ears and a dance in my step upon my journey home. Your kind hospitality was much appreciated. Oh, I wish you didn't have to leave. I'm going to miss you, my friend. Until Tuesday.
Meetis raised his cup and crossed one leg in front of the other and did a gentleman's bow.
Aye, lad. Our celebrations will go on until our next visit. Farewell, my friends. Hold on.
Then Baylord took off the sticks from his back and sat down for a moment while Meetis sang a song.
and the days grow thin. The flurry winds, the echo doors, the fine companionship rings evermore. I will not fight, I will not battle. I'll sing tonight and calm the chattel. Till Wednesday comes my weary end, I'll think of you and be renewed again. Bring song and step to your wilderness. Share all my songs with those that love the best. Be true to life, live bountiful. Awaken the signs of all parallel. Here is a gift, a stringed instrument or two. Give to a lad and a lass that you once knew. Let them remember how to carry you through. La la la, la la la. This will carry you through. I bid thee well, my friend. Strong journeys and good drink. Fair women and man abroad, safe journeys. Tarry not with the winter winds. La la la. Yeah, the key of C.
Very good.
Yeah, key of C for a change.
But you know, this is the 100th transmission of Meetis, so it was a little celebration today. Maybe we should have some applause.
All right, well, let's just thank you very much, Meetis.
Yeah, there you go.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you all. So, bless.
Yeah,
well,
I know.
At least he's going home now, so I don't have to do those two voices at once. It's quite challenging to keep my, because what I have to do is actually I have to lean one way to be Meetis and lean the other way to be the Baylord, and kind of do it like that. It's strange. It's a strange thing.
Well, it's quite a combination, and I noticed, you know, Baylord's had his interactions with different people here and there. You know, he had Dryden. I was really contended with Dryden. Talks about his stuff with Rhodan, and trying to think of some of the others that he has spent some time with. And then usually in the end, he kind of was glad that they came. He had that whole group of Elven that were there. So they just sort of show up. And what I didn't realize is he's keeping himself looking really young. It's kind of fun.
How was he dressed this time?
Youthful. Just sort of like layers of clothing, but not as finely dressed as he was when he was with Dryden. Almost he was wearing silks and really fine clothing and, the little snuff box and the lacy sleeves. And in this attire, he's more kind of simple cotton clothing, like jacket and loose-fitting pants, some kind of boots, or and just like a bag that kind of, hangs over across his shoulders. And his hair seems to be like light brown to blonde, kind of curly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But he looks like he may be about 19, 20. Yeah. But he's quite old, and we all know he's old. Mm. So if he ever shows up, I don't know, there's a younger and an older version of him.
Yeah, you met him as a child as well, didn't you?
As a young child, yeah, probably around 10 to 12 years old. And, he and I kind of went at it, but I think he does that when he first meets someone. He kind of has this protective attitude where he kind of, just disagrees and argues and makes it difficult. But when I saw him like that, I think it just kind of melted my heart towards him. And I'm like, oh, he's just, displaced. He doesn't know where he belongs and feels like, he's alone here, as an immortal, I guess. Some of he's, has to lose friends and all that other stuff and people die off. A little bit of a playful, Highlander. But, he has a good attitude and, the people seem to like him, but then of course he always has to move. And I don't know if he goes forward in time or back in time or how he does this, where nobody ever figures out who he is.
Yeah, but, he seems to be able to time regress as well. So he can, do you think perhaps he would time regress himself a bit too far, like maybe to a child or something like that, and not be able to think clearly anymore?
I think he retains his ability to think. It's mostly his appearance that changes. I think his awareness doesn't change. So it's like a very old soul in a very young appearing body.
Just like the old saying, I wish I knew then what I know now.
Yeah, he gets to do that. Mm. Yeah, but rarely likes to be old. Probably would make himself look old, but I haven't seen him do that yet. Usually, the oldest I've seen him look maybe is mid to late 20s. And that's about it. Anyhow.
So, should we, go to the transporter room and see what time Gary's arriving?
Yeah. Yes.
Hello, hello, hello. Have you ever seen a purple penguin? They're quite fun to watch, actually. I thought to have one as a travel companion. We don't have pets in my society. All living creatures have value. Why do humans feel the need to control? I guess I understand that things can get a bit out of hand. My friend Herbert the penguin and I will be going on many journeys ahead.
Oh, will I get to meet Herbert sometime?
That's a very personal question. Why do you probe so much into my private life?
It's typical for us to ask a question like that, Gary. We don't regard questions of that nature to be too personal.
In our society, we don't focus on these things.
How can you ignore a purple penguin in a room? Isn't it like a pink elephant?
Pink elephant? Did you say pink elephant? I met one of those once. I think he was a clown in one of those places, in a kind of circular place. Something you call a circus?
That's what I'm saying. Is that purple penguin, is that out of the ordinary for you, or is it
not for me. They come in many colours. I just like the purple over the yellow ones.
Does Herbert speak to you?
Of course. Why wouldn't he? He's quite interesting, actually.
Well, I would hope to meet him someday.
Very well. On a more serious note, You found the source of AI.
Well, I wasn't sure about what I was seeing. I'm glad that that is the case.
Good job. It makes our work easier. Maybe one day you can have a purple penguin. Or a pink one. Isn't pink your favourite colour? Remember not to trip over Luxembourg. There are some tricky things over in that region. And until further notice, stay out of Belgium. Gravity, gravity, gravity. I prefer anti-gravity. Farewell.
Well, as usual, Gary makes knows it. Stay out of Luxembourg and Belgium. I mean, like, yeah, as if I'm going to go to Belgium. Who wants to go to Belgium? Sorry, Belgium, but like, I'm just sorry. Just sorry.
Well, the fact that he has his friend, he's talking, the other day he was talking about something blue, and now he's talking about a purple penguin. And then he got very offended that I asked him about the purple penguin. He brought it up. But I think he just does this stuff. Doesn't make any sense.
Cafe Racers just posted, keep calm and love purple penguins. Did you just make that? Crazy. Saffron saying go to Belgium to get chocolate. Well, I'd say, not for the moment.
Why not, JP?
Well, Gary's just saying, until further notice, stay out of Belgium. What can I say?
What about Luxembourg? He said, don't trip over Luxembourg.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is a small place. I have a friend who's from, one of the drummers from my band was from Luxembourg. Probably some sort of prince or something.
Something's going on over there, maybe. He talks very cryptic at times, but I think he's trying to let me know. And he mentions, I think he's implying that we don't have the right attitude calling these other animals our pets.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? I think people mix up the concept of dominion and domination, and that we give them domain, that we give them somewhere to live, but we can't dominate them. They should be allowed to do what they want to do.
Right.
But
and they have
everybody's got their own relationship to the other creatures on this planet.
Mm-hmm. But I thought it was quite interesting, and so they see that the other species, the animal species, having this consciousness that they shouldn't be in that situation. But I think a lot of people love animals, but they just don't see it that way. They see it, the word pet is something that wasn't. I think he wanted to bring that home to us. But yeah, he's a purple penguin. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if that actually exists or not.
It's an infinite universe, Jess.
Yeah, I know.
And he said, what was funny is he said, I prefer the purple ones over the yellow ones.
Yeah.
So yeah, rainbow penguins, all different colored penguins somewhere in the universe.
And he didn't know what pink elephants were.
He seemed to confuse them with clowns.
Well, that whole statement, there's a pink elephant in the room. Yeah, he did. He associated them with the circus.
And also with lots of alcohol is when people see pink elephants. So.
Oh, okay.
Hitting too much mead.
So we're going to be, Speaking of mead, I've discovered that there is a distillery not far from me.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Waha.
Yes. In a lovely little town called Ipswich. Mm-hmm.
How cute. How cute. Just
Probably
like
about 20 minutes drive from here.
Oh, that's brilliant. So, did they have a monastery there, or beekeepers or something? Sounds very New England. Obviously, like Ipswich is a place. It really, it's not a great place. You know, it's on the East Coast. Everything's very flat. It's very uneventful, and they have lots of engineers there.
What, in Massachusetts? Or isn't there an Ipswich over there in England?
Ipswich. That's Ipswich in I think it's Suffolk. My friend used to go to university there. Very uneventful sort of town, really.
Well, this is it's a coastal area, and it's quaint over here. There's not much for industry, and I think someone just decided to create, their kind of go out and make something that there isn't a whole lot of in the area. And they must have been beekeepers, but I have to go down there and explore a little bit and kind of get the information and share with anyone. But I thought it was quite interesting that there was a meadery not far from me.
That's really good news, yes.
I know. Well, it's important. It's important pieces of life. So I'll have to send you some, TP.
It's very, very nice when you if you've got a cold or something like that, or a sore throat, because it's a honey-based drink and it coats the throat and it makes it nice.
I love the flavor of it, and I do prefer it over. And I love ciders, and I like a good Guinness, but I don't mind. I think mead is one of my favorites.
Yeah, me too.
But it does have a little bit of a punch to it, right? There's a little bit of a punch to it. You don't underestimate the alcoholic content in there.
It's very sweet and very, it's like a port or something like that. There's a level to which you can't brew something anymore because it kills the beings in the yeast and things. So, it's at that level, so that's like a fortified wine or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
it's not
good.
Beer. It's not a beer.
No, it isn't. It isn't, but it's very, very good. It's the drink of the Andronicus, the Clandronicus group. It's the preferred drink.
We should get some labels made up.
I know. Well, trust me, there might be a conversation along those lines.
There might be. There's all sorts of conversations going on, aren't there? So, shall we do some tunes and then grab some peeps?
Yep, we're going to grab some peeps, and we'll be back for the second hour to have some further discussions about the Andronicus transmissions. So we are back here in the Andronicus transmissions, and we're second hour, and we're joined by Ray, Rolf, and Christina, and we're going to have some discussions about maybe some of the stuff that people are bringing up in the chat room, and you guys have some really, really good comments in there. I should do more open discussions and have people communicate with the chat, because you guys bring in some really good ideas. But I'm going to go around and say hello to everyone. Hello, Christina. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for joining us. Hello, Ray.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Jess. Hello, JP. I'm doing fine, thank you.
Wonderful. And last, hello, Rolf. Thanks for joining us today as well.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Jess. Hi, JP. It's all good.
Okay, so, we were having, having a nice little discussion about some of the things earlier, and I don't know, we were talking a bit, before, while the music was playing, about the purple penguins. Did anyone have anything that they want to share regarding the transmissions?
Yeah, it was, sorry, Jess, right. It was interesting, wasn't it, about, what Andrew was saying? Talking about the Rigel group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they like to take control.
What do you think about the generational gap? Because that one kind of bothers me, because I know you're a family guy, and would talk to, anyone of any age. What are your thoughts on that, Ray?
What, the generation gap?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's always been like the separation thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's why every generation's got to be different from the previous one. So we don't really merge with each other, like you're never going to understand your mother's generation or your grandmother's generation. And that's what keeps us separate. And that's what we have got to work out, because it's that is the wrong thing. We're all the same age in a sense. When you get to a certain age, you know that we're all one. We all like to talk, on the same level, on the same plane as being equal. Like rather my old grandmother, my old mum. My day was better than your day. It's designed to me to break the family up, and that's what it is. Absolutely what it is. So that's my bit of opinion on it.
Yeah, I see in the chat room, Vanessa says it reduces the support system by creating a generational gap. So people are less likely to support one another.
Well, that's right. That's why, it's so sad, like you're so distant from your parents and you're so distant from your grandparents and your uncles and aunts. You can't beat the 60s and you can't beat the 70s, you can't beat the 80s. That's what it's designed to do, that, to make us think that was a better period, that was a better time. So
yeah.
we don't want that no more. We don't want this control from governments telling us how to think and what to do.
And not everyone should have to learn the hard way either, because that's what happens when you have a generational gap. People feel like the others really just don't know what they're talking about, and not able to really be open to suggestions from people that have more experience. And I know some people need to learn the hard way, but many others maybe didn't have to. And
probably the worst generation now is young children with their heads stuck in their phones.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah. I wanted you guys to all, comment on how they actually use technology to further create a greater gap.
Yeah, exactly. You got the parents sitting in the front room, and even my own daughter, she's in her bedroom, just me and my phone, and I have to go in there and every so often. Well, all right, you still here? Still here? Yeah, I'm all right, Dad. Yeah, it's just the phone. It's like another arm. It's just stuck to them, and it's so hard to tell them, what you're doing. So, this technology is, well, we know it's designed that way to do that. I mean, I'm not against technology. I think technology is great, but it's the way it's been used and it's the way it's divided the people. That's what I'm against.
Absolutely. And almost it's hypnotic, and also bringing in information into our child's thinking, because they don't have the filter that we know to not just accept everything that comes through.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So Christina, tell me your thoughts on that. Maybe technology or some other aspect of the generational gap.
Yeah, I found Andrew's transmission to be very informative. This is a great example. It's nice to get this information in clarity, because this one you can really, at first a few things will pop up, but as you take time to kind of like review families or friendships or things that might have not worked well, and you wonder why, now you can kind of see, oh, okay, this is why there was this constant conflict, you know, with the communication especially. So for me, it was great hearing this. You know, I also, in my own life, have a sister who's 10 years older than me. And, it was interesting to go through life changes where we kind of separated and we could no longer communicate. And with time, things repair themselves, to a certain extent. And you have to realize that you have to find a way to kind of communicate in a way that other people can maybe take it in more, So with time, you realize you adjust kind of like your communication style, whatever, so that you can have a friendship or a good relationship with people. So this is very interesting, and yeah, particularly with the younger generation, you have to become pretty good at texting if you want to have a good communication with them.
Right.
If you can't figure out how to communicate well in a text, you're not going to get across. And even if they just reply with a yes or a W after you put a very detailed message to them. So I'm so glad that Andrew shared this with us, because this is going to make a lot of people think, and it's going to provoke a lot of thought, and maybe, hopefully, also in some of the verbiage that he said towards the end of the transmission, where he said that some of the challenges are up to us to change, maybe with this nugget, they'll start helping people that listen to the transmissions to, kind of think, well, how can I already start adjusting this in my life so that it improves? And maybe that kind of helps break the system, because he also mentioned that with the wave of a hand, the stuff could go away, but then he also said that this would be, going away soon. So it's interesting. It almost seems like maybe he's letting us be aware of it so that we can start putting some energy into some of whatever hurt we've experienced from generational gap communication, and we can start taking some action to improve our current, communication block.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think what they do is they sort of let us know what they're doing in many occasions, and tell us that they're happy about something, or that an area that we may have grown accustomed to that wasn't originally part of the plan, and so somehow got slipped in to our reality. And so it's saying that, well, it's not necessary to have a generational gap. That was imposed upon us through a program. That changes everything. Yeah. Because you're assuming that, I always thought, isn't this odd? Like every 10 years or so, well, why are people so different? Well, they shouldn't be, should they?
Yeah. Yeah.
I know soul groups and so forth, you are contributors to this, but I think that there was something, much greater, and also the way that the educational system is programming things and working along with these parameters, and further adding other systems to everything. And you don't even have to be in the educational system, just the mass media in general, imposes their agendas, and before you know it, you're all in, everyone starts getting segmented again on another level. So it's kind of incremental, and
yeah,
it's hard to watch. But and I know, as a parent, for me it was the video games where I was just so hypnotic at times, and yet now I'm discovering that the video games were a point of disclosure. So, but yet there was still, an overlay of this other information coming through, and maybe, they thought that the adults weren't able to take in some of this information, but it's something, that I think is a bigger discussion.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing. And let's bring Rolf into the conversation. Rolf, what are your thoughts on the topic?
Well, I mean, it's kind of disturbing when you're standing in line in the grocery store and someone has a 10 spare seconds before he, gets helped by the cashier or whatever. And they feel this urge, or they feel like they need to check that phone for those 9 seconds they have until it's their turn. It's like, it's an addiction. They can almost feel the phone, like calling them in their pockets, and they have to check their Facebook feed, and they have to do this and that. And, you see people in the bus, all they do is look at their phone. They don't look outside. And like Ray said, it's people walking outside with their head stuck in their phone instead of looking up to, the blue sky and the birds and all that. I mean, it's disturbing. People on parties are communicating with each other through their phone, like in the Facebook Messenger or stuff like that, instead of, physically talking to each other. I mean, yeah, it's kind of creepy when you think about it. And yeah, it's probably part of an agenda to disconnect us humans from each other more and more. And then, you see how on the mainstream news they promote all these AI inventions, how, you have the Google glasses, like how much longer until they're going to promote a Google Lens or a Google implant, or, have your Facebook feed in the right-hand corner of your eye, stuff like that. I mean, I don't think that's something we would want. Because that would make us like a cyborg or something.
Right.
Which kind of brings me to what Rhodan said about those species called the Borg. Is that like, how is that connected? Do you know anything about that, Jess?
I think the Borg have been here for a long time, and it sounds like that they were created as a species by the. I got the impression they were created by the rogue ancient builders, not the builders that were working, and that created a lot of the species. But that this was a break-off group, a rogue group, and then they created a few different types of species that have been detrimental, and apparently this Borg group was created by them, but they found their way, navigated their way here on the planet, have been on the planet for a while, and seem to have found their way over by It was really weird because the name Morbius came up, and I was like, well, isn't that Morpheus? Is from the Matrix.
Yeah.
And I heard the name Morbius, and I started looking online saying, well, where else did I hear the name Morbius? And apparently that's the name of this being. And then it brought me over to the region. The region of, let's see if I can find it. I think I closed all my windows here. Moldova. Moldovia. I guess it's sort of near Russia. And I never thought to put the two of them together, but I guess it's like a region. But then, and so
I think Moldova is in around Croatia way, like Yugoslavia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Romania and Hungary.
Yeah, when they broke up the Yugoslavia, Moldova is a part of Croatia, all them sort of places like that, and I think it's there actually.
Yeah, so that I guess that they've been around for a while, and he's going to be Rhodan's going to be communicating with them, because technically they weren't supposed to be here, but he found here's a case of typically there's a species that's here and then they've screwed up, or they did something they shouldn't have, and in this case the species that wasn't supposed to be here but have actually helped. And they prevented some wars in the area because of their strong presence. And sort of hiding behind these giants, like I say giants, like the giant civilizations like the Russians and, in Asia and so forth, kind of really very much in the background. So, as we're listening to them, listening to him talk, then I discovered that there's more to this. But, as I tuned into the area, I could feel the presence. And he said that they have, been there for a very long time, have intermingled and, have merged with humans. And, I've heard of a lot of different things going on in that whole area, Czechoslovakia, the Czech Republic, and all the different Bosnia and all those different nations there. And, there's a lot of mystery to that area. And I think, that area is, the Moldova is in Romania, Neil Wannabe said. There's some mystique or something in that area where they've been attacked heavily by wars. And apparently it could have been worse. And you don't really hear about too many wars in Romania, do you? But, when you get, further away from that area, there's been more than enough, wars. And I think there were some really beautiful things. And, anyone else want to share their thoughts on this?
Well, I had a thought about, like Rhodan said, these Borgs, or the Borg, are like a hive mind. Do you think that this AI agenda that we have here going on is an attempt to turn the humans into a hive mind? They're trying to connect us to this AI. It's like they're pushing it onto us constantly. And for example, this like massive Google, Facebook machine would then function as the queen of the hive, because all our communications would be going through the Facebook Messenger, and so through this AI supercomputer. So we're all kind of, connected to this. Does that make any sense to you?
Resistance is futile.
That can't be Gary, because I don't think Gary would say that. Is that Eric?
Well, yeah, Eric is a hive mind, isn't he?
Yeah, I guess. I see in the chat room, Architect said in the old sci-fi movie, The Forbidden Planet, there is a scientist who's called Morpheus who took over a powerful AI device on the planet he was living on. That's interesting. Well, so, I think these movies are kind of a bleed through of some of the things that have happened, and they want us to be aware of it. And a lot of people, they kind of look at sci-fi as kind of a fun little thing, but it's quite revealing at times. And some of those realities definitely have existed. I mean, it's just people can't pull this stuff out of a hat. I mean, but they no a lot of people don't know what to do with it, because it feels like fantasy to them, or it scares them in a way to think that it's a reality. So they place it in a safe place in their mind that, oh, this can't happen. It's not true. But, this stuff is going on. I was not aware of that movie, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That was in somewhere. I'd have to watch that movie sometime.
That's a good film, as it goes.
Yeah,
Jesse.
Planet. I thought that was a TV series. Isn't there a TV series called Forbidden Planet?
I don't think so. I know it was a one-off film.
It
Probably
was
going back about in the 60s.
The film was called Forbidden Planet, and the TV series was called Lost in Space.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah,
Bit
well,
of a geek nerd there. Sorry about that. I couldn't help it.
Well, that makes sense. Just, I was saying about what Andrew said earlier, and when he said, I have grown quite fond of humanity in this timeline, which I thought was so beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was such a beautiful, and like carry on.
Carry on that he said that in the end. Yeah.
So that was quite a nice quote what he said, you know, because there was a lot of dark stuff in there telling about the Rigel system, how they like to take control, which is basically our government, or all governments. So that was that was interesting, wasn't it?
It is. It was nice to see that. Well, when I observed this timeline drop off that he was showing me, and then I thought of that time traveler that was telling that story from that video that I shared. I was like, isn't this interesting? You know, how it's not that these timelines are discarded. I think a lot of those souls just go into another timeline, or they already pre-exist. It's almost like parallels. And the coolest thing is I saw that there was like an interesting lesson that gets learned where you have like the Cabal, or those royal families, or those that are in charge. We say in charge of these corporations or whatever, those corporation heads. They seem to have this massive control over us, you know, regarding, you know, how the laws play out, how, you know, the way the corporations run, who gets paid what, and, you know, which immediately creates this weird power structure. I don't believe in every timeline there is this, you know, haves and have-nots, you know, type of thing. I don't think it's as extreme. And there may even be a timeline where it's even more extreme than it is here. But the way he said it is the interplay of how this group is dominant here, and then in another timeline we were dominant, maybe. You know, he's saying like maybe it was your soul group, you know, all of us listeners here, maybe a part of this collective that had power in another timeline, and maybe we had a different way of doing things that they didn't like. And so everything's sort of kind of shifting and balancing, and seeing how we interact amongst each other, and that at some point maybe we can all be awakened enough to say that none of this makes any sense. So I think Andrew would like to see this play out. And some of the events that were supposed to happen didn't happen, and I've been noticing that. As people are predicting things, and he says at some point things that were predicted and were expected and that people were agreed to that were going to happen in this timeline have not happened.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting, wasn't it, when he said that?
Yeah.
That was pretty good. So, you know, Andrew obviously Andrew's Andromedus, coming from, was it the past, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And,
Andronicus, yeah.
Yeah, and when he does John, he's from the future, and then John was from as in now. So, you know, it was a great, what he said, it was, you know, I can't remember it all now, but there was a lot of opening up there and saying about who these groups are, where they are, who they are, and how they're going to really deal with them. And I think they actually, at the time now, they are sort of sorting things out and dealing with these, the Cabal.
Well, there was something really interesting happened. I did another interview with James Rinks on Super Soldier Talk, and it's going to be coming out soon. And Peter the Insider. And Peter the Insider was talking about some of the things that have been happening in Hawaii, and said that someone stepped in, and he came right out and said it was related to Andronicus. So that correlates with what Andrew said. And when that interview comes up, you know, be sure to listen in. It's some really, really interesting questions regarding what's going on in our world right now, and they were addressed. But when he came right out and said it was Andronicus stepping in, that something was supposed to have gone off and it didn't. That said a lot to me, and it's funny because he said, "Didn't you know about it already?" And I said, "Well, they don't share everything with me, only the things that they want to, and they don't typically brag about what they do. They pretty much, want to inform us so that we can be in alignment in a mass consciousness or make our own choice and decision on some of these things. But he's not here to say he's a hero in any way, but rather that he's kind of more fatherly and overseeing, and kind of watching over us, sort of, and allowing us to have our experiences here. So
yeah, that's interesting. So people, you heard it here first. It was Andronicus done it.
Andronicus,
not the Russians, not
right.
the Germans, not the Nazis, not Ken Dunn.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for the answers, Jess. Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else want to add to that?
Well, when talking about editing timelines or collapsing timelines, if you go to bed that night and you wake up the next day and you look 10 pounds more than when you went to sleep, can you blame it on a timeline edit or a timeline collapse? Or it doesn't have anything to do with that and I can't use that as an excuse?
I know what you're saying. It's not just like weight or anything like that, but actually see a change in your face.
Yeah.
Some kind of alteration. Yeah, well,
it just seems like, yeah, it seems like lately there's been so many like shifts that you can actually feel, and it's just been kind of comical for me because I'll be like, okay, so I look a little bit, I'll blame it on the timeline, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I lost some. Okay, this is good. It must be another timeline. No, anyways, I was just trying to be funny.
Yeah. It is. I mean, I know what you're talking about, and I think other people, if, they've ever had that awareness where they look and say, wow, my face has changed. Something's going on here. And, at night we're traveling, we're doing different things. And also the earth has experienced different overlays of realities. And so that we are, sometimes we're being influenced by these overlays. There's a distortion in our field that's not the truth of what's going on in the experience. So
yeah.
What I do is I ask them to shift, because I've looked at some, even just like facial expressions and other things. I'm like, where did that come from? That I don't remember that. And I think lots of things are going on in our dream space. People aren't fully aware of the dream space. It's really kind of a mystery. And when we go off, like you talk about super soldiers, a lot of them are doing their missions at night. And they say, well, geez, I don't remember, but sometimes I feel like I'm in this battle and I'm doing this and that. Like battle where? Where's this battle at? Well, I don't know. I was off the planet and there were these beings and, it's just like literally they're somewhere else and they come back, and then sometimes they have like, some kind of ailments or injury or skin issues or, scratches and different things that they didn't go to sleep having. So, yeah. And it could be that there are other things going on where you're stepping out and then returning. I don't know. I mean, as far as, when it comes to the rules of the universe, it seems like all the rules are broken at night when we're sleeping. And, there's a law of gravity, there's all these different laws that we're living and experiencing with, and they're not easy to break. But at night, it seems like all those parameters are broken, and I think that, it could be that, the ET activity and all that stuff as well. So, yeah, I hear many, many stories about what goes on in the
Yeah,
deep space. So.
Yeah. And I guess the only other comment I had was of the AI. And while we were having the transmissions today, I just had this thought wondering what happens on every Monday when after Meetis and the AI have to collect all the la-la-las from all the chatters. I wonder what they think of that.
All the la-la-las. You guys have fun with the la-la-las. We could probably have like 20,000 of them in there.
But basically, I wanted to ask you a little bit too about the fact that Meetis mentioned, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about this or not, but the AI and the sand. Is there anything further you can share?
Rhodan brought that up, the AI and the sand.
Rhodan? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he brought that, he said they were a transducer or something. Somehow they're like moving through, it's almost like, rocks and stones hold the vibration or the frequency of things. And so they're using that to, I had to look up what the transducer did. JP, you know what this is. I don't know if he's still there. JP?
Oh,
He's
sorry,
making tea.
I was somewhere else. Well,
Yeah.
Hello?
All right, so Rhodan mentioned how the sand became a transducer.
Right, yeah. Well, sand is quartz crystal, so there's just like zillions and zillions of quartz crystals, and so you can program them all. So what these Rigelians have probably done, or this AI, has programmed what they call smart dust, which is tiny little computers the size of a grain of sand.
Do you think that they're literally using the sand? Because that's what Rhodan seemed to say. He said the sand is an indicator of what's going on the planet.
I think the sand takes the energy. Say you're sending. Now, my thinking is just like, if you're sending a signal to a bunch of computers, it might not also, other things might get programmed in the beam, as it were. So, like, you might have a bunch of computers that receive this signal, but also the sand, being a tiny computer, almost like a piece of smart dust, is also going to be programmed. All the crystals in the area are going to be programmed by the energy of the beam. That's my thinking. Just a thought.
Yeah. And I don't know why, but when I was receiving the transmission, I thought of Sands of Time.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. Like you're saying, that smart dust, like Paul just put in the chat, does it come down with the chemtrails? JP, do you think that...
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe they're seeding the clouds with smart dust to program the water to make ripples, to make...
I remember I used to buy a magazine. I used to buy a magazine about 20 years ago, and it was talking about, like a New Scientist magazine I used to buy every week. And it's quite expensive. It was about £5-6. And they was talking about smart dust then. 20 years ago. Interesting, isn't it? How they put things out.
So, JP, why do you think that Sands of Time came up when Rhodan was doing the transmission with me?
Maybe you could ask Rhodan about helping Sean to get back out of jail, because it's going to take a divine intervention from like Odin or someone to get him out, probably.
Okay, maybe yeah, we'll ask him. We'll ask Rhodan to see if he can assist in that area. Because, it was clearly extracting, someone that's been here to help support and disclose information, and, we'd like to see him get helped.
Yes, we would. So,
yeah,
we're about 3 minutes away.
Okay, so I just want to say, thank you to everybody for joining us today, and I love you all, and thank you, Christina, Ray, Rolf, for being on the show. I always appreciate your insights and feedback and great work. Thank you, JP. And remember to
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Jess. Thank you, JP. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Thank you,
enjoyed
Jess.
being on.
Thank you,
Thank you very much.
and support the station. Keep everything going. We'll see you next week.
Happy days, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.